All right, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to our GCC Copilot Webinar. I am sharing my screen and we'll kick things off as more folks are joining here. So today, thank you all for joining me. I have a lot to show you in the next hour or so. And my plan is to demo, hopefully all live if Copilot cooperates, a complete flow of work, as I call it. And that hopefully will allow you to see how to get value from M365 Copilot. Now, what we'll be talking about today, we'll be focusing on the premium license of Copilot. Some of you may be using what we call the included or the free version that is included in Office or M365 product. And that is also M365 Copilot. Premium license or the premium version of Copilot allows you to get intelligence or interact with your work data. It also allows you to use Copilot in apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams via the intelligent meeting recap and Teams chats, and then Outlook to manage your inbox. These are all features of the premium M365 Copilot. So today we'll largely be focusing on the capabilities of the premium M365 Copilot. Some of what I'm going to do, you will be able to do using the included Copilot chat, as we call it. And so with that, I'd like to show you sort of a day in the life of, and that day in the life of is watching how an ISO can use scattered signals across the M365, can use those signals and turn them into a training package and a rollout plan, right? And we'll be going and using those signals across various M365 resources like meetings, our documents, some metrics, emails, and then also we'll tap into the knowledge and power of the web. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and I'm going to show you how to do that. Hopefully Copilot and demo gods are with me and I'll be able to run through everything live. But if not, I've got some things pre-staged here, so we'll be able to show you one way or another. And as we go through this, I'd like you to keep an open mind and to think, how can I apply this to my daily job? How can I do this in my role, right? How can I use Copilot, whether you have the premium or the included license? Hopefully you will see a little bit about how to apply this to your daily job. So here, I'm going to start with, and again, remind you that today's job or my job today as Priya Shah here, and I'm sharing out my little dev space, and I'm in this dev space as Priya Shah and ISO. I need to create a new training package for my employees, and that training package is going to focus on cybersecurity awareness. So I have signals in the M365 space, including meetings that we hold or where we discuss those signals, right? I have a calendar, maybe I have emails that discuss the priority. How can I aggregate all those signals together and then easily create a training package, right? Think about the training materials that we as employees have to consume either quarterly or annually or monthly, and that can take a long time to create. So in the next hour, I'm going to show you how I can create multiple training resources for my employees using Copilot and aggregating those signals using one interface. So here I start in the heart of our application, which is Copilot Chat, which can be accessed at m365copilot.com. Or you can click on an icon on your desktop if you have one, and you will end up here. I have Work and Web tab at the top, which is how I know I have the premium license. When you have the work and web toggle or tabs at the top, you can use Copilot to interact with your work data, including emails, Teams chats, documents, calendar, people you work with, and you can also go out and get fresh ideas from the web. So this is definitely the heart of our application, but when you have the premium license, you have Copilot across your top apps or your core apps, which are Outlook, Teams, Word, PowerPoint, Excel. We also have it in OneNote. You also have Copilot in OneDrive and SharePoint, Stream. Forms are coming. So there's a whole list of applications where you can use the AI assistant. And I'm actually going to hop over to Teams and show you, because I have meetings where we talk about cybersecurity awareness, training priorities, I want to extract some intelligence from a previous meeting that we had. So I'm going to hop on over to Teams, and I'll show you that for a recorded meeting, you will see the recap as such right here, this blue button. Any transcribed or recorded, and when you have a recording, you do have the transcription. So at minimum, you need transcription. Anything that was transcribed in a Teams meeting will have this button view recap. And under this button view recap, if you have the license for Copilot, the premium one, you'll have this tab AI summary. An AI summary will contain notes that you can easily copy and paste into an email, create a status update. But in addition to that, you have this little button here up at the top, Copilot. And as our first prompt or ask for Copilot, I'm going to rerun this little pre-staged prompt here. And I'm going to paste it right into the prompt window on the bottom. I'm just going to say, summarize this meeting. I need you to focus on key threat themes, training needs, decisions made, open items, action items with owners, and items that need an ISO or compliance review. And you can see here up at the top, I previously ran this or these prompts. So you can see the chat history. If you've opened Copilot in that meeting, after the meeting took place and you interacted with Copilot, you will see your chat history up at the top here. And sometimes I'll refer to it if it's taking its time to create a response, just so we can move through this demo and I can show you everything that I want to show you. So in Teams, when you have a premium license, while this is building a response, I'll point out 3 different places where you can use Copilot. In Teams meetings, after the meeting, when there's a recap as such, you can use Copilot to further ask questions like, what are my action items? What decisions were made? Help prepare me for the next meeting based on what is discussed or was discussed in this meeting, right? Anything that you can think of. Who said what? What was said about this topic? What did John say, right? Anything that you can think of that you'd want to know what happened in that meeting. Maybe you missed it. Maybe you're just trying to catch up and kind of revisit the conversation. You can use Copilot against the meeting recap to ask all those questions. And here you're seeing that it's building a response. It is answering the very questions that I asked and including action items, breaking it down by the name here. My action item is Priya, is to review the final package, that is the training package, before publication. Right, so I first have to create the package and then review the package. So I'm going to run one more prompt here, since this is giving me pretty good turnaround time. Turn this meeting into a training requirements table with columns for risk theme, evidence from the meeting, impacted audience, recommended training topic, owner, follow-up needed, and the source. And here, if I were to scroll up, you will see the table built just up above here. So if you needed a priority table for training requirements based on this meeting's discussion, it can build you a table as such. And then, of course, you can use the copy icon or button at the bottom of the response, and you can paste it into a Word document, right? And you can even ask it to format it so you can paste it in a Word document. This is already formatted for a Word document. While this is being built, you can see there's lots of good information there. I will switch over to chat, and now we're going to start gathering intelligence by using Copilot from across our M365 to try and prepare to build our training package. So before I switch over, I wanted to show you that on the bottom of the response, a lot of times it proactively suggests very helpful things to you where you might want to take that action next anyway. And I find that it is spot on a lot of the times where it will proactively suggest something that I was going to do anyway, like maybe add a column for training delivery format, list specific follow-up actions for each owner. And these suggested prompts will be there on the bottom of every response that you get from Copilot. And all I have to do is click on the button and it will run that next prompt for you, right? Maybe you've already seen that. So while it's working on the next prompt for us, I'm going to go back to M365 Copilot and just briefly show you around. This is your left navigation if you haven't seen one. If you're using the included or the free Copilot chat, it will be similar, but you may be missing a couple of the options here. Your prompts will be different because it doesn't have access to your work data, but it will have context of any documents that you've previously used with Copilot. So it will keep that context. And you may see some documents here, even if you're not using the premium version. Here we have 3 modes for our GPT 5.1. Quick response, think deeper, and auto. I always keep it on auto, and that way it decides which mode to use, right? And so here, I'm going to paste this kind of a long prompt, and I'll explain. The best way you can get the best response possible in the shortest amount of time is by helping Copilot and focusing it on the data you want it to use. Let's face it, we all create a lot of data, and in our production environment, now this is a little dev area, so it's nice and clean, but in our real life at work, we have a lot of data. And if we don't provide specifics to Copilot or to any AI tool on what we're looking for, it can get dizzy and it can start to grab a lot of information that it thinks is relevant, but may not be what we want. So the best way that you can avoid that sort of broad or vague or even hallucinating is by helping Copilot, by focusing it, by providing it the data that you want it to have. So in this particular prompt, what I'm asking for is a recommendation for top cybersecurity training priorities for this quarter or next quarter. I want it to start preparing me to create that training package. And I know that I have references in the following documents. I have a planning meeting summary that we just looked at. I have an awareness policy. I have a response quick guide, incident response quick guide. I have a public threat intelligence brief. I have a calendar for security awareness. And, oops, what else do I have? I have a spreadsheet. So I'm asking you to use those references, but I'm not just going to leave it at that and have it search, thousands of documents. I'm going to help it along. I'm going to show you what I do pretty often. This button, the plus sign, allows you to add references to your prompt. And when you have the premium version of Copilot, you have this little section here, add work content. This is the work IQ, as we call it, or the ability to add references from your internal M365 right into the prompt. And look at how many options we have here. You can add people that you work with. You can add files, and this shows you recently accessed or recently worked with people, somebody you collaborated with, files you opened recently. You can see I was prepping for this very demo. Meetings, right? Emails, chats, your team's chats, and even SharePoint sites. So you can add an entire site and you can ask a question. Here, I'm going to show you by adding references like meeting. So I'm going to come over here and search for cybersecurity planning meeting. This is the very meeting that we just looked at and asked Copilot to summarize. So I'm going to add that in here. Now, I'm going to also add the following documents. And there's 5 or 6. I'll show you another way. And something that I do pretty often is use the cloud files option. A lot of times we don't know where these documents are, right? Chances are you might not know where that document is stored, but you might have an idea once you come into here and you have an option to browse your OneDrive files as well as SharePoint sites, right? So once you find where your documents are, and here they are, you can attach them right into the prompt. So here, I'll show you that I could also use a SharePoint site, right? Once I identify that, oh, these are actually living on a SharePoint site. In this case, I'm going to attach them one by one to show you that I can add multiple documents or multiple sources into the prompt. I could have also gone with this option and added a site. Suppose I know that these documents are on this site. I could just add the whole site in there, right? So let's run this prompt live. This should take a while because what I'm asking for here is to create a recommendation for the top cybersecurity training priorities for the next quarter. And then I'm giving it all of these documents. So it's going to have a look across all of these documents and decide, right? So it might take a little while. Use the following references. Also search the web. So I'm bringing all these components into one response. I want to know from my internal, I wanted to also search the web for current PubSec cybersecurity threat guidance from authoritative sources that use the information to supplement, and then use the information to supplement the recommendations. So it's a beefy prompt. Now I'm asking you to include why that matters for each priority, right? Rationale as to why that's important. Internal source or policy basis, current external threat trend or guidance, and then impacted audience, recommended training format, and then what needs ISO or compliance review. And at the end of it, I'm asking you to separate internal facts from web-based sources. So I can decide, or I can decide whether to incorporate which source. Right, so it's thinking. I have a prompt that if this takes too long, I'll hop on over into something that I've previously completed. I'll show you the output. So the output should be a priority list for my cybersecurity training. And that should give me a good start into figuring out what materials I have to create. And here it goes. And it's just going to take a while to build because there's a lot of information. Hopefully you're starting to see how we can use Copilot to get intelligence from all the internal as well as external data sources. By the way, I am in the work tab, if you noticed up here. And if your organization has web grounding or web search enabled, you'll be able to do what I'm doing here in the work tab, which is what? Searching internal and external data sources. If your organization has web grounding or web search disabled, you will be able to interact with internal data sources only, right? You won't be able to search the web. If I switch over to the web tab, this is where you can use Copilot to get fresh ideas from the web because it will ignore all of your internal work data. right? So keep that in mind. In the Web tab, it will ignore all your work data, while in the Work tab, you can do both, Work, Web Search. Just don't forget to switch back to Work tab if you do hop on over to the web. A very common challenge or a very common scenario for end users is they forget that they're in the web and they start asking about work. And of course, Copilot gets very confused because it doesn't see any of your work documents or any sources while it's in the web. So while this is building, you can see how it's responding in the format that I asked it to. It's separating internal guidance, and it's only using the references that I asked it to use. And it's separating external from internal. It also is including, for each training priority, impacted audience, recommended training format, and then which elements or what will need ISO or compliance review. Once this is done building, we are going to ask it for one more thing, and that will be to create a one-page executive summary. So this is great. I'm building out a lot of information. I will at some point need to update my team on our training priorities and what training packages we're going to create. From this information, I need an executive summary, right? Because the next thing I might be doing is briefing either my leadership or my team on what we're doing next with training. So once this is done building, I'm going to ask it to give me an executive summary of this information. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to go into a Word document, and we're going to ask it to create us a training manual based on these resources and the information that we gathered here. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let me open up this prompt, which has completed. So we can move on to the next scenario. Create a one-page executive summary for leadership, explaining why we are updating our cybersecurity awareness training, what the highest priority risks are, which audiences need targeted training, and what decisions are needed. By the way, when you are using Copilot, when should you start a new chat? And the new chat button is the little plus sign at the top right of your screen. A good way or a good decision tree is when you are starting a new topic, you should start a new chat, right? You have 30 turns per chat session, in case you did not know, which is 30 prompts that you can type into a single chat session. So while this is thinking, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks. So new chat, every time you're changing a topic or switching and you now want to ask something new that is different than the conversation here, you want to start a new chat. Why that is because every time you submit a prompt or ask a question, Copilot retains the context of the conversation, right? So it's keeping the context of this entire conversation with each new prompt that you submit. So it's a continuous conversation. They're not separate prompts. And so when you're changing a topic, you can make Copilot dizzy, as I call it. So new topic, new chat. 30 prompts or turns per chat session. So be aware of that in case you are having a very, very long chat. And at some point you will run out and we don't have yet messaging that will warn you that you're running out of chats. So we're just going to say you're out of chats in this session, right? And so what I like to advise anyone who's using Copilot and who's running into a longer chat is to ask Copilot to look at your chat and create an effective prompt that will get you to this very point in a new chat, right? So if you're working on something complex or you're not quite getting the response that you need or want, and you're continuing the conversation for some time, just stop and ask Copilot to analyze this conversation. And it can do that very well for you. And create an effective prompt that will get you to this very place in a new conversation, right? And it's going to analyze the chat and give you a prompt to do so. Okay, so here's my executive summary. Now I can also say prepare some speaking points, right? And it kind of already is recommending. I can also generate a slide or a visual. Instead, I'm just going to say draft my speaker notes, right? So now I feel like I will be better prepared to maybe brief my leadership on our training priorities. So hopefully you're seeing how I can use Copilot to gather intelligence and to collect signals across M365. And now it's time to create our training documentation. Speaker notes, great stuff here, right? I can feel like now I've got an assistant who can prepare me to present this. And you may have already used AI or Copilot when you are presenting to help you present. If you haven't, definitely give it a try. I do it all the time, including how should I open this presentation to tell me effective ways to present this topic to the closing statement. It's just good at helping us with any kind of presentations. All right, I'm going to hop on over to Word, and I will open up a new Word document to show you that I can use draft with Copilot to create that training. So here is a blank Word document. Now in Word on the web, you can do this in your desktop. And if you have the premium license for Copilot, when you open up a new document, you may have noticed this little section up at the top. This is draft with Copilot. Here, I'm going to enter a prompt, which you may already see there, pre-populated from my previous runs, but it goes something like this. Create a cybersecurity awareness training manual for employees based on the meeting we had, the awareness policy, the incident response quick guide, the intelligence brief, and the security awareness calendar. So here, I will bring the resources into this prompt so that Copilot can interact with them and create manual, right? So the idea here is you ask Copilot to create a document for you by referencing your existing documents within M365. So here, if you look at the add content, you can see the little blue icon here, and I can browse my OneDrive files. So very similar to how I used referencing documents in Copilot chat. I can add one by one my documents here. So I'm going to add the awareness policy, and I'm going to add the quick response guide. I'm also going to add our public intelligence brief and our cybersecurity calendar. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then there's a meeting that I wanted to include. So for this, for Word and using Copilot in Word, I actually downloaded the transcript of the meeting here and saved it off as a Word document. And now I can use it as a reference, right? So now I can have Copilot create a training document that includes all of these sections, including a knowledge check. Use a clear, practical, government-appropriate tone for a non-technical audience, right? So what this will be is our first draft, not the final draft, but the first draft that will get us started with this effort. What I would do, and if this was a real life scenario, what I would of course do is I would create it, I would tweak this. I may bring in some other references if I find that there's something that I've missed, right? And this is what I often do. I would iterate on this, but in this demo, my goal is to show you how you can use Copilot to get started on that first draft. And you can see this is pretty fast. There's a training manual right here, which includes introduction learning objectives, top cyber risks employees should know about, phishing and social engineering examples, credential and MFA, ransomware prevention, how to report suspicious activity, role-based examples, common mistakes to avoid. There's a knowledge check. There's items requiring ISO compliance validation. There's training calendar highlights. Hopefully you're starting to see how it's bringing all of these resources and creating this training guide, right? Now, if I wanted to here, I could highlight this and say, create more questions and answers. Right, so now I'm showing you how to keep iterating with Copilot in Word to get what you want. Oh, and now I got 20 instead of 5, right? So it really complied with my request. So you can not only create, but you can iterate and you can update, refine information, add, remove, and things like that. So once you're happy, and we'll just go with it for the demo purposes, maybe we'll delete this, right? We'll clean this up a little. Once I'm happy with it, here's the next step. I also need a reference card. So once I got this going, notice this little icon up at the top, Copilot. And now I'm going to launch Copilot on the side pane. And if you noticed, it looks like Copilot Chat. That's because it is Copilot Chat. And now I'm going to say, turn this manual, right? So we're just getting going here. We're not even done. Turn this training manual into a one-page employee job aid titled Recognize, Report, and Respond. So now I'm having Copilot read the document that it created, that we created, and make a different version, right? Which is another really good and solid use case that I use Copilot and I use AI a lot in that creating different versions of one document, right? So if you have a policy, you can turn it into a brief. You can turn it into an executive memo. If you have an SOP, you can turn it into another version, right? So think, oh, and it actually errored out on us. Think of the possibilities here of having something that is existing or created, and then having Copilot or AI give you that document or that content in a different version. So I'm going to give it one more shot, and I'm going to, if not, I'll switch over to a document that I have created this previously in. So let's give it one more chance in the interest of time, and I'll show you what happens. So what it should do is in the side pane where we launched it from, it should create that employee job aid. And you can use a button with the plus sign to insert that text into the document. So what I was going to show you, and I will show you, is creating additional content using the side pane in Copilot, and then making that content part of your existing document. It looks like here it is. quick job aid. So if we scroll all the way down, and I'm going to insert a page break here, because in addition to this long training manual, I want to also include this job aid. And on the bottom of the response, you'll see the plus sign or the button. And the plus button adds the information to the document. Super easy, right? And here, with one click, we now have a job aid as part of our document. And so we have a longer version and we have a short version. You can also create other information on the side pane and then insert that in, right? So for now, let's move on to our next. Show you how to do that. So now I want to create, for our next example, I want to create a management or manager guide, right? So this training manual is for employees, right? Now that is saved in my OneDrive. Now let's pretend that maybe tomorrow or next week, I go back and I say, I need to create a manager guide. I can use this as a foundation, and I can go back to draft with Copilot, and I can ask it to create a manager guide from this very document. So if I am not able to show it to you live, that would be because it has not had time to index, and I'll show you what I mean. If I go back to my blank Word document, in the same fashion, I'll go into the draft mode, right? And now I'm going to say, create a manager guide from this training manual. And here's what I would add it. And let me see if I can pull it up in the OneDrive yet. If I can, then I can show it to you live. So here, I'm looking for this training manual, which is about a minute ago, and it does appear here. Right, so you see how I'm grabbing something that I just created with Copilot, and I'm using this as a reference document, and I'm asking Copilot to now draft a manager guide, right? So there's a lot you can do here. In the same fashion, it's going to create a manager guide, and you can then iterate until you get it perfectly the way you want it. So we'll let this go for a few seconds, and then we'll switch over to PowerPoint. Now, what if you wanted to create a slide deck based on either this guide or the job guide that we just created, right? This is nice. I like this. I'll keep it. Now, as you may guess, in PowerPoint, and I've pre-staged this for you because this does take a little bit of time. I'm going to show you the prompt on screen, but this is what it would look like. You go into a blank PowerPoint deck, and then you ask Copilot to create a presentation, and you give it a reference. The reference has to be a Word document. It will only work for Word documents for now. You can add multiple, up to 5, but they have to be Word documents, right? So in my case, I can create a presentation based on my awareness manual for employees. I can also create one for managers. So when you go over to PowerPoint, you can do this on the web or on the desktop. In a blank PowerPoint presentation, you see in the center of your screen this little star icon, and you can choose the first option. And once it loads, you should see a prompt window. Might have to try this again. And here it tells you, describe the presentation you'd like and add up to 5 files if needed. And if I click on files, these are recent files. There's not a cloud icon yet, so you kind of have to wait for that file to be populated in your recent files. But here I have one that I previously created, not just a few minutes ago, but yet yesterday. And you can further describe, here, let me grab a little prompt here. You can describe what presentation or what slide deck you'd like it to create. So I'm going to let you see this. Create a presentation for employees using the training manual that we referenced and the job aid. It's all in one. This is the format that I wanted to follow. Why awareness matters, current threat times, how to spot phishing, credential and MFA protection, ransomware, etc., etc., etc. On the bottom, I say use a professional government appropriate tone, keep it concise, and include speaker notes for the ISO, me. And now it's going to create an outline. And I am able to show you this live, so bonus. This is an outline. Once it pulls together an outline, these are not the slides yet, right? This is an outline. It wants to make sure that I'm okay with this outline. And I am, because it is following exactly the outline that I asked it to follow, right? If you look at the numbers 1 through 8, key takeaways is last, key takeaways. So in this case, I'm happy. I'm going to go ahead, say, go ahead, create my slides. And now it should look something, not exactly, not identical to, but something like this, right? Where I have, I believe, 36 slides. It applied the theme, right? And now I can show you the slides. There we go. Cybersecurity awareness training for employees. If I go into notes, you will see the disclosure, the AI disclosure. We always have that. And I will also see information which are speaker notes and also can be considered just notes that are coming from the Word document, right? So these are speaker notes with information coming from my references, right? You can see that on this slide, I have a reference of where it got the information to create this presentation. And then also on each slide, I should have speaker notes. Right, pretty cool, I think. From here, if I, Priya, have to present, I may say something like, hey, go ahead and add more speaker notes or expand speaker notes here so that I, Priya, can deliver this as a 20-minute employee awareness session. So maybe I, Priya, will be recording a video on cybersecurity awareness, right? So now I'm using Copilot not only to prepare the training materials and the presentation, but also prepare my speech, right? So now it's going to work. And while it's doing that, and we'll check back in a few minutes here, I'm going to flip over to Excel. I'm going to show you something that I haven't showed you yet, how you can use Copilot to analyze your Excel data. Now, for my cybersecurity, if I were trying to figure out which departments should I target, right? Maybe there's metrics that we have that show me which department might need that training first based on maybe some activity they have, or you'll see in the Excel. So once you have that Excel spreadsheet with data, it might take a long time to actually analyze data, build pivot tables. Without doing any of that, I can use Copilot and I can ask it to analyze that data and let me know which departments I should target first, right? So I'm going to hop over to my Excel, which is not open here, but I will go ahead and quickly open it for you from my OneDrive or right from here. So again, this is an Excel workbook opening up in Excel on the web, and you can do this on your desktop. And as always, I have my little helper here, Copilot. So I'm going to launch Copilot. And here, This data shows me departments, employee population count, phishing click rate, training completion rate, MFA enrollment rate, reported suspicious emails, and shows me some data, right? So I'd like to know which departments I should target first based on this data. So I'm going to run a prompt here that hopefully will complete live, because that is also something that may take a little bit. And the prompt goes something like this. Analyze this data. Analyze the cybersecurity readiness data and identify which departments should receive the highest training priority. Consider phishing click rate, training completion rate, right, and MFA enrollment rate. And so even if you don't include the information here, I included it just to show you that what a good prompt is. And a good prompt is always the one that includes specifics, right? We never want to be vague with AI to avoid the risk of A, hallucinations, and then B, not getting what we want. So we want to provide specifics. But in this case, since it's going to look at the data here, it will be able to figure out and determine that departments that need to receive training first are the ones that perhaps have the highest phishing click rate, or perhaps the ones that have the lowest completion rate. It's intelligent enough to figure that out. And here you'll see that in its determination, when it completed the response, it determined that, hey, finance is our top priority. Why? Well, they have the highest click rate. They have recent exposures. They have 3 prior incidents, right? They have a low training completion rate, right? So it goes on to break down why that department and to justify the rationale for providing these insights, right? And you'll see much, much more after it's listing all the departments who should receive next tier medium priority. On the bottom, you should always see something like this, which is summary of the top findings. This is great for like a slide. If I had to present to my leadership, again, I will always have to present on this information. I can grab this summary and I can paste it on the slide now. Super easy. It even goes as far as creating a scheduling 2-week sprint. So it's very, very proactive in the information that it's giving you. Create a summary table with columns. Department, key risk indicator, training gap, recommended training module, priority level, and suggested manager action. Now, while this is thinking and working, I'm going to see if I have my speaker notes. No, I do not. Okay. It might have also been because we navigated away from the screen, which I do see happen. So in real life, if you're asking Copilot to do something, at least wait till it begins a response, and then you can navigate and do something else and come back to it. For the demo purposes, we'll just keep going. So when it's thinking like this, if I navigate, it might throw an error because the process will stop on the back end because it thinks that you're not using the application. So just a tip and a trick, wait for it to start responding, then you can navigate away and come back. We are almost at the top of the hour, but I still have Outlook to show you. So I will hop on over to Outlook, and then we'll see if we can show you the table here. And in Outlook, as you may guess, and you may have already used Copilot to do that, I'm going to draft some emails to my team, right? There's a lot going on. I have a lot of information to share. So I'm going to start drafting some emails, and I wanted to show you how to do that. Here's the table. Very cool. And so for our last example here, or last demo, I'm going to start with a very simple use case. Summarize an email. Very simple. Hope you all had a chance to try it, because it's it even works without a premium Copilot license. So using the included Copilot chat, I hope you all know you can use Copilot chat, that is, to summarize an email. You won't see the button here, Summary by Copilot, unless you're a premium license holder, but you will see this on the very top right, which is Copilot chat. So first, you can summarize this email. This is a long email thread. This is relevant to our training prep launch messaging for cybersecurity awareness package. I'm going to say, hey, summarize this email thread for me. Include decisions made, open questions, compliance concerns, messaging guidance, tech guidance, actions I need to take before launch, right? And you can see how quickly it's able to read the email that I have open on screen. So it has context and it grounds itself on the very email that I have open on screen. And it's able to summarize that for me, including decisions made, open questions, compliance concerns, messaging guidance from Alex, and so forth and so on. You can see that. And on the bottom, it's asking me if I would like it to draft the final employee and manager announcements. So I can draft right in here. I can also draft in a new email, which is what I'd like to show you next. So I'm going to close the side pane. I'm going to hop on over into a new email. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to use Draft with Copilot, which you can launch from your keyboard by using Alt-I, those two buttons. And I'm going to say, hey, can you draft an employee email announcing the cybersecurity awareness training? So this is a feature that is included in the premium version, right? You won't be able to use Copilot chat, but if you don't have the premium license, I would encourage you to try and use the side pane and to ask Copilot to draft emails. It will be able to do that for you. Here's a draft. On the bottom, if I scroll a little bit to the bottom or a little bit below, you can see some options. These are particular to email. We have a make it shorter option, a make it longer option, and then change the tone. In addition to these options, you can provide custom instructions here. So if I think this is, maybe a little too long, I can say something like this. Back to Copilot. Hey, make it shorter, clearer, and more action-oriented while keeping the supportive tone and compliance constraints. Now what you will see is a second draft. And I can see right here that this is a draft 2 of 2, which means I can browse and look at all of my drafts until I decide which one I want to keep. Here's my first draft. Here's my second draft. If I create or if I provide further instructions, I'll have more drafts here. I'm going to say keep it. Then I will verify that this is what I want, right? And then I will send it off to my employees. Now, in a similar fashion, if I had a manager documentation, so if I had the manager training package, I would come over into a new email. We'll delete this, and that will be my last demo. And thank you for sticking with me here. And in the draft mode, now for the manager's training package that I've put together, I'm going to ask Copilot to, and I didn't let you see the prompt, draft a manager-specific email announcing the cybersecurity awareness training. Here's what to include. Put placeholder for deadline, placeholder for training link that I will fill in later. And here's my draft, right? If I like it, I'm going to say keep it, and then I will go in and fill in the date and the placeholder for training. So I showed you a lot. I did not show you Copilot notebooks, and we'll have a separate session on that. But what we did cover was how to use M365 Copilot across your apps, across Copilot Chat, Work tab, and collect and aggregate all the signals to create training packages just like that using Word, and then presentations using PowerPoint, analyze data in Excel, right, and draft emails in Outlook. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you found this useful. I'm going to switch over and see if we have any questions in the Q&A. Thank you so much. No questions in the Q&A. Let me see. A few things in the chat. I will share the recording with everyone who registered for this webinar. I will send out the recording to you, and that way you'll be able to access it. All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.